All right, great. So welcome to Scouting for Food 2.0. This should be recording now. So hopefully you all got that prompt. I'm really excited about the number of folks that we've got to join us that are interested in doing a great service project for the families across New Hampshire. Quite frankly, this was originally envisioned by our council president, Jim Steiner. We have a surging need throughout the state that we're repeatedly hearing about on the news about food insecurity and families needing help through COVID-19. And so one of our key drivers for this event, quite frankly, is just paying attention to the media and social media, and really answering, I think, a great call. We're very good about food collection every year. And so with our history and our expertise in managing this service project, and then just Scouts' great will to help other people at all times, we thought it would be a really great way to activate our units, get you outdoors at a time when things hopefully can be a little safer, given that you can do an outdoor activity, and then just get you doing the good things that scouting does. This is also not to mention the fact that, quite frankly, I think scouting really needs some great press. We just had a really great story in the Union Leader and also on WMUR and a few other news outlets about our first female Eagle Scout just yesterday. So if you didn't catch it, I would encourage you to Google the story or go to one of those prominent news outlets in New Hampshire and check out that story. It was a great story about Valerie, our first female Eagle Scout. She did a great job in her interview, and special thanks to Jim for helping us with the public relations on that. So hopefully we can do the same thing with Scouting for Food 2.0. Most of you might have participated in Scout Supports Hospitals initiative that we did last spring. And we had some really great stories to talk about. And quite frankly, we just served a lot of our frontline workers with that campaign. So this is a reboot to keep Scouts active and helping the community. So I'm going to do a shared screen here and bring up a quick PowerPoint, and we'll go through a couple slides and talk about things conceptually here. So let's see if I can get it over here. So Jim, I don't know if you want to say anything in general while I set this up.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I'll just a couple of brief observations. So Jim Steiner had this idea after I thought was a very successful Scouting for Food campaign last fall, as many of you will recall. And in our follow-up conversations with people at the state level and other people in the community, and obviously our own observations, there's still a real serious need to serve. Food insecurity remains a serious concern. And so we began to craft this idea, and we worked on a letter that Jay put together, and I took it and I had a conversation with John Dumay, who is the president of the New Hampshire Grocers Association, which is the trade association that represents all the various grocers in the state, the big ones and the small ones. And we went to them to enlist their support, and hopefully, their help in putting this together. And took the letter. He was very interested. He put me in touch with a few chains individually, which we've been tracking down, including talking to Shaw's and Hannaford and others. But then the grocers at their board meeting, I think a week ago or so, formally and enthusiastically endorsed this program, and are waiting to hear from us to get word out to all of their members that the Scouts are going to be doing this and they're going to be in touch. And to encourage people to take part, and they'll continue to be a resource for us to help put this together. So we're really excited about that. I think it says a lot about the council that John reacted so strongly and immediately, made a point of saying to me, what he thought about the Scout program and how positive he was about it. So that's a credit to each of you. So in any event, so we've got some kind of pre-buy-in here. And we'll talk a little bit here as we go through the slides quickly to respect your time, how this will work going forward. But I think folks are excited about it. I think it's going to be well received, and we're going to do a lot of good while doing well. So Jay?
Yeah, so thanks. So unfortunately, actually, I'm not sure why, but I'm actually having difficulty getting the slide deck to show. So what I'll do is I'll just take you through some of the key tenets, and you won't have the pictures, but to basically tell you what our intentions are. To give you background, I mentioned that food insecurity is a significant issue affecting thousands of our families across the state. Obviously the pandemic has amplified the need for food and increase the issue of hunger across the state. And the council has been helping facilitate this process for Scouting for Food for the last 33 years. So this will actually be the 34th campaign that will bring in food collection for the state. And the first time that we've done two food collections in a single year. It's still our intention to run the fall Scouting for Food campaign in November. Um, about 50,000 families benefit every year from the effort. And actually, last fall, we hit a record breaking number of 100 food pantries that we delivered food to. And we collect about $250,000 food items every year. So it's pretty significant in terms of the total net contribution of our support to the food pantries. This year, we've collaborated with, as Jim alluded to, with two associations, the New Hampshire Grocers Association and then the New England Associated Grocers Association, two prominent organizations that advocate for all sorts of issues related to food and food distribution, among many other different affiliates and customers that they support. And we're really excited about this partnership because what it did was allowed us to communicate directly through a network of professionals that Scouting was ready to be called to action to address the need. And so several folks have stepped forward and said, we're happy to promote the program and talk about what it is that you'd like to do. So when we conceptualized the event, we knew it would be really difficult to get Scout families to do what we typically do in November in the spring in a second round type of effort, going door to door, mailbox to mailbox, and rally a 2 weekend effort. We didn't know what programs would look like in the spring for the average unit. A lot of troops and packs and crews and ships have all, scheduled some of their spring activities. So they might already have camping events and other events that we didn't want to conflict with. So we thought it might be beneficial to actually set up the food collection right at the grocery stores themselves and make things more streamlined for your ability to collect the food. So when we sent our request to the associations, essentially they were very responsive. And you may have seen that actually in the first go around of our communication to all of you, we chose 6 weekends to pick. And after further discussion with the associations, we've reduced that down to 2 weekends at the request of the grocery stores and through the association. They just felt it would be a lot easier to manage. I tend to agree, and I completely understand where they're coming from, in that as we direct our efforts towards those grocery stores, we're not spread out across the state. We can kind of hone in on two particular dates. So the dates that we're targeting now are April 3rd and April 10th. Those two dates have been posted up on our council website. You can find that under resources and then choose Scouting for Food. That's actually how you found out how to link to us for the meeting today. So if you go to that website, you can find the information for the two dates. We're proposing a time of day from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So a 6-hour stretch of time to coordinate a group of scouts. And we'd like to ask you to try to keep your numbers low for the location. Just keep it COVID safe. So use common sense and good judgment. There are some grocery stores that will have very specific requirements. So what the association has asked us to do is to work directly with you to identify those grocery stores that you'd like to set up a collection. And if you're collecting, let's say, for instance, at Hannaford's, they have very specific requirements for that collection point. So we would provide those to all of the units that might choose a Hannaford's for a collection. So other places that have been receptive, for instance, are Shaw's. So like a good example of setting up that location, they may have corporate policies that we can help you navigate through when it comes time to organize. We also want to work directly with you to get those permissions in place. And then once we have them, we can provide you a linkage to the store managers to actually work through the setup day and handle some of the logistics of the actual collection on site. Um, the location you can get to sign up for Scouting for Food is also at that website I mentioned. So what we'd like to ask everybody that's on this call to do is, if your unit is willing to participate and you have that Saturday free, either April 3rd or April 10th, go to the website, fill out the form, and register as a unit so that we can collect all of the information as to who's participating. And on that form, it asks you which grocery store you'd like to set up at, so we can coordinate through the associations exactly how we want to manage those logistics at those sites. Obviously, if you have a relationship with one of those grocers, by all means, you can work with them if you know them from other efforts you've made, like, front door sales or popcorn or other issues like that. We still want you to register, though, so that we know exactly where all of our units are going to be on those 2 dates, and that we can help with any kind of follow-up related to those particular stores. And it's also good for the association to know where we're spreading out the participation across the state. Um, the next phase of that, obviously, is once you get the food, how do you deal with it? And quite frankly, that's where we're going to ask for your participation and your experience. We have close to 100 pantries across the state we've supported. We're happy to handle the communication on our end with those pantries. But quite frankly, I'd like to delegate some of that responsibility to the units themselves, who already have those partnerships in place. We don't want to relegate that responsibility for you, because we know that you all have great partnerships with them. So to the extent that you can coordinate that delivery yourself, we'd like to have you participate in doing so. The key thing is, again, similarly to registering and finding out what grocery stores you're at, we'd also like to collect that information just to know who our food pantry partners are, and also get an understanding of how much food was collected, because that's a great story to talk about in scouting. And quite frankly, it helps us measure the total impact of the effort, when we're communicating to prospective media outlets, or quite frankly, just supporting you with thank you notes and making sure that we have a good pulse on what pantries are there. So we have a form for that also, right? So they're easy forms, not hard to fill out. They're Cognito forms, they're online. All the information goes into a database, and that form's located on the website also. And then last but not least, we do have a what items are needed list. Same similar type of list that we've had in the past for our mailbox collection, or I shouldn't say mailbox collection, but really your doorstep collection. And so the bottom line for that is same type of items. We'll post the suggested list of items to collect on the website too, so you have it on the ready. And what most of the stores are encouraging us to do, some of them don't let us do flyers to give out to the customers. They want you to put up a poster near your collection point and just sort of advertise to the folks within sort of eyesight. There are even some stores that don't necessarily want you on the doorstep or right in the entryway of the store. So some of the stores are a little bit more restrictive. That's where we're going to have to be potentially a little bit creative on our rally point. But making some signage on your own, or even getting some feedback from you as to what you think might work at the site locations, we can work with you to try to set some of those logistics up. So conceptually, the idea is to collect food on point. So 6 hours at a store, be right there where people are buying food. They get extra items in their cart, come out of the store, go to your collection point and drop items right there where the scouts are present. To the extent that you have some maybe unit flags and can make yourself visible in the parking lot, that stuff is really, really positive, because that'll bring awareness to it. And I suspect that some customers will just come over and try to find out, what's going on. The stores will work with us to try to help rally the communication. But based on the restrictions of the different stores, we'll work with you on your site location to make sure that we're being good stewards to their customers, and we're not getting in the way of, sort of their business strategy, or affecting issues of safety and other matters like that. So, Jim, do you have a couple of things you want to add or highlight?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Jay. Just a couple of things. I think coming out of tonight, the most important thing for us is to understand what unit, whether it's April 3rd or April 10th, but what units intend to participate and where. We can't guarantee you, there may be a store in your community that you want to work with. That may not be an option. As Jay pointed out, some stores are being fairly strict because of COVID, and understandably so, while others are going to be more flexible working with us. So I think what we want to walk away with is a sense that a unit in Chester, a unit in Moulton Borough, a unit in Seabrook, intends to do this. Then what we can do is we can go back to the grocers, and they'll send out, broadly their, announcement to all the grocers in their organization saying, we're participating in the Scouts in this. We encourage you to do it. Then we can work to pinpoint you to the extent possible with the store, hopefully the one that you want to work with. So coming out at least tonight with a sense of who wants to do this would be great. Secondly, Jay's point on the local pantries is really important. We, for a couple of reasons. One, that's where the need is. Okay. Two, it is something that the media picks up on both statewide, but also locally, because what we'll do as this unfolds in April is we will work to do some local media placements, with local weeklies or other, others that you may be dealing with, or we can help you do that. But three, and I will tell you, one of the reasons the Grocers Association agreed to work with us is they recognize the importance of having the food go to local pantries. And the president of the association is on the New Hampshire Food Bank Board of Directors. And he said that they encourage local pantry giving. And so they were really excited that local donations would go right back into the community rather than having to be centralized in one point. So I think in last fall, it must have been 85 or 90 different pantries that were served by that Scouting for Food effort. And so similarly, it would be great to see that happen here, but it should be great. There will be some push and pull about positioning of a unit, whether we can leaflet or not. But the responses we've gotten have been very positive. I think it'll be well received. I did one of these with my son's troop this fall before the pandemic, and we did a great, pickup that day. So I have no doubt we'll have the same response here.
Thanks, Jim. So I noticed actually Aaron Crowley from Troop 22 put up a really good positive statement about their troop facilitating a similar event. And not to put you on the spot, Aaron, but if you're still online, I'd love to hear your story really quick about how you use social media to communicate. I think that's a really creative way to get the message out.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So this was from when I was in another unit in a different council. So we would traditionally do our Scouting for Food in more like January, and we would turn it into the local food pantry early February, because that was when our food pantry told us they really had a dire need. Everyone gives for Thanksgiving and for Christmas, and then they kind of forget about the food pantries right after the holidays pass. So what we would do is we would use the door hangers. Some people would do that, but a lot of what we would do is we had a very active Facebook troop group page. So we would really put it out there. We would make up little, graphic posts that people could then share to their own personal pages. We'd send out, share them to our local town and community pages. Other groups that we had the food pantry worked with would also sometimes cross share our post so that people were aware. And what we would do is we would have either set locations where people could drop the food off, or we would just say, like myself, we have a nice farmer's porch, drop the food off at our house sometime, just let us know, and people could just put it right on our porch, and then we would pick it up. So, and it really, we were very successful many years doing this. And in fact, one year did it in our post after the fact, because our scouts would then go, this was pre-COVID, would go to that food pantry, and they would actually stock the shelves with the food that we donated, as well as whatever food items they may have there. So we would take photos of that and also advertise that in addition to collecting the food, we stocked it. And there was one year where our post on the food pantry page about, our how much food we raised and the efforts our scouts put in got picked up by the local newspaper, who then ran a story about how the food pantry really was running out of food. And that resulted in, like, I mean, businesses were dropping off pallets of food after the fact. So I mean, I think it's a very powerful tool to be used, and especially now with COVID, it's even more applicable.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I know many of you have community pages, so that is a great mechanism to get the word out. And, truthfully, we recognize that the unit leaders in your own town, you have a better pulse or perspective on how to reach the local outlets of communication in your own town, more so on many levels than the council, because we're dealing with things on a state level. You might have, resources locally in the community. So thank you for that, Aaron. I appreciate you sharing your story in relationship to that. I want to open it up for questions, because I know there may be some questions in terms of concept or just granular sort of process questions. So feel free to unmute and ask a question. Nobody eager to jump out. So at least we did a good job of communicating. I see Carolyn, you unmuted.
I did. We're in Stratham, and we have, 2 grocery stores right here in town, a third right around the corner in Exeter, and we've got a lot of active units right around us. So how will we work together to get those stores properly covered? I don't want to fill out the form and say, we're going to do Shaw's, if Exeter, Newfields, and Newmarket all want to do Shaw's. We've got a lot of very active units kind of vying for the stores that are in our location. And I want to be sure that other stores aren't overlooked, and yet I want to be sure that the local unit is able to cover one of their local stores.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And quite frankly, I think one of the things that'll be great about the information that everybody submits to us in terms of participation, we'll get a pretty good pulse about which units want to participate and where they would like to participate. And then what we'll do is we'll actually work with your respective district folks to communicate to the district chairs which units have signed up to what locations, and then work the logistics of ensuring that everybody has an adequate place to do the collection. And the sooner we can get that information put together, the better we can plan, because, realistically, we're about 5 or 6 weeks away from our collection points. So probably within the next week, I would encourage at least everybody on this call to go out and fill out that unit commitment form so that we can pull all the information together. And then we'll begin the process of communicating with each of the units what the status of your collection point will be and how we can best move forward. If that makes sense.
That does, yes, thank you. Should we reach out to that collection store ahead of time to ensure that they are a store that is wanting us there, or will you take care of that on your end?
Yeah, so give us the first opportunity to be the frontline defense to that. I know some places, some of you may have places that are outside the association, so like a Walmart or a different collection point. If you have a Walmart Supercenter or an Aldi's, they may not be within the association. So we would most definitely work with you if we don't have a connection point to that particular food distributor. But we'll make every effort we can to make it easy for all of you. When you go to meet with the manager, it's not a surprise to them that we're doing the collection. The association has said that they'll work with us to make it so that it's not a surprise, which is one of the reasons why they ask us to narrow down the dates, and then also give them enough runway to communicate to their individual stores. Once those permissions are in place, it should be relatively easy for unit leaders or your coordinator within the unit to get to that particular store and make arrangements for that, to set up on that particular collection day. So, all right. Well,
Great.
thank you, Carolyn. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. I see that there's somebody said about 90% positive Girl Scout cookie sales would be over by then. So it's good that we're not competing with the cookie sales. I appreciate that. And we wish the Girl Scouts luck with the sales that they're doing. And then there was another question about collections getting divided from the stores to the pantries. And, candidly, we can work with you if you need assistance on that. But, I would just encourage you that all food collected for all pantries is good. So to the extent that you can divide and conquer the resources that you're collecting, just get it to those that need it. and obviously try to be fair and equitable. We try to do that with our regular Scouting for Food collection. Like I said, most of the units out there, you all know what the best vehicle is to get that information out to those who need it the most. So, certainly we'll rely on your expertise to help us with those issues. But if you have need for specific direction, we can work with you and again, work with the district chairs to give us some feedback about how best to navigate certain communities. Any other questions by anybody else in the group? If not, we can call it a night, and we'll put out a lot of information through email and continue to post on our website.
Hey Jay,
Okay.
before we close, Tanya has a question.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tanya.
Are Shaws and Hannafords the only ones that have committed so far?
Jim, you want to answer that?
Sure. No, and we have a couple of other commitments. The Associated Grocers of New England have their independent stores. There are a handful of other stores from a small chain. I've got to go back. I think Price Choppers has actually said that they would open up their stores to us as well. So I saw someone say Market Basket. Market Basket, not yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the association. We're going to go back with hopefully, and tell them the dates so they can blow it out, and then we will work to, like I said, as Jay said, partner as many of you as possible with a local store that you can work with. So there are other stores committing, and we hope that once this blast email goes up in the association, there'll be a number of them statewide, the big ones as well as the small independents.
Okay, thank you.
I did see some comments about Massabesic Chuck Wagon. Thank you for that information in terms of the confirmation. Certainly, we don't want to pull people away from a great outdoor activity. So that's one of the reasons why we chose 2 dates. If we find an overwhelming number of units that can't participate in the district on the 3rd, we can certainly work with the association, I'm certain, to potentially pick another alternate date for that district and just cover those stores in that area. So we don't want to trip on our own, great activities and our own programs. So by all means, we'll be sensitive to that conflict. So thanks for clarifying the information about the Chuck Wagon. And I also saw that David Laflamme has a question. So Dave, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. A couple things, I guess. Did any stores or chains decline to participate, like maybe because of COVID concerns or something? Are there any that just ruled it out rather than say, well, come back later and see?
None have outright said no. All of them at least have taken it under advisement and considered it. And understandably, they're being careful, but the response thus far has been fairly positive. So, but no one has just said outright, we can't do it right now.
Okay. And then if we get a surge in the pandemic, this may be fluid, guidance may change. Is that reasonable to expect?
Yes, short answer to that is, so as we've been moving along with guidance, obviously we're trying to pivot even ourselves as it relates to total number of people at locations and what types of activities we allow and how in the environments in which we allow them. So in short, I think to the extent that we can adapt to the circumstances, we'll certainly attempt to do that. I think they're in the same situation we are, obviously, right, in terms of safety and count and concern about the public, but absolutely. And I think Brendan put up a question about Market Basket. We are pursuing Market Basket as well, and I'm not sure. I guess Jim did answer that question. So, all right. So I'll just share this. If you have specific questions related to this, I'll use an opportunity to just do one more final PSA before we close out. We have opened a ticket system in the council to support unit level inquiries. And I would encourage you that if you want to have a direct response, all of the Scouting for Food issues will go directly through to me through the ticketing system. So if you want to send a note to support@nhscouting.org, that is our ticketing system. And what happens with that, if you're not familiar, is we create a ticket number. dedicated to your issue. It helps us track questions and common Q&A. And actually that will help us with this event because we can come up with a common Q&A for this event moving forward. So support@nhscouting.org is where I would ask you to direct the email that will send a ticket directly to me. I'll work directly with you through that ticket number and we'll address the issue. And then we actually have the mechanism to close it out once we've answered your questions, and it'll allow us to aggregate communications too. So it's made us very efficient to have it. So in the past, if you've ever been a victim of calling the service center and not knowing which extension to call or how to get your question answered or not to get a phone call back or an issue like that, the ticketing system actually prevents that from happening because we actually have 2 leaders on our leadership team who act as gatekeeper to those tickets, and they hold me accountable to the tickets too. They act as an air traffic control to all of those customer issues. So I would encourage you to use it if you haven't. You can always call me through the service center and get my phone number too. By the way, if you do that, the voicemail gets recorded, it creates a ticket, comes to me, and they hold me accountable to make sure that I closed the ticket and called you back. So I would really encourage you to take advantage of that. And the other question about show and sell, Brendan, great question. I don't see a conflict with the take orders for maple syrup and pancake mix, just so long as you coordinate that with the manager. We'll just make sure that we don't have a restriction with that site location, but love your creativity to want to raise dollars too. I don't think there'll be a huge conflict. Some places may limit it, just because they're only allowing us to do the collection. So we'll work with you on it. Thanks for that question too. So appreciate everybody's time and attention. I know many of you have dinner plans or are off to another scouting activity. So I appreciate so much enthusiasm and such a great turnout for folks to come. And we're really looking forward to getting a great report across the state about how much impact Scouts made to those who really need us the most. So thanks for continuing to continue to do what great things you do. And I just have to say this last final comment. You know, I'm a dad of 2 Scouts myself. When we're out there doing service, I think we're inspiring other families to be a part of Scouting while we're doing it. And we need a lot of that. So as most of you know, because of COVID, it was a tough Cub Scout year. We didn't recruit a lot of Cub Scouts this year. And to keep Scouting alive, we've got to keep showing ourselves as visibly as we can. So don't stop recruiting. So if you're going to sell maple syrup and pancake mix and you can get by with it, and the manager will let you do it with the collection, make sure that you have joined Scouting information out also. So, all right. So thanks so much, everybody. Stay safe. Have a really good night. Appreciate your leadership and look forward to a great result.